So, have you ever thought about your life as an investment? Not of money, but of cosmic energy. In this explainer, we're going to look at a pretty fascinating framework that reimagines your whole existence as a kind of portfolio. And your personal growth, well, that's the ultimate career guide for whatever comes next. It's a heavy question, I know, but the source material for this explainer suggests that every single choice we make either builds up our spiritual assets or it pushes us closer to something it calls soulrupcy. It basically forces you to stop and ask, are we actually building wealth or are we on a fast track to becoming, a homeless soul? So how exactly does a soul go bankrupt? Well, apparently it usually happens when you follow one of three really common but really flawed investment strategies. Let's dig into these failing portfolios so we can see what not to do with our cosmic energy. Okay, so you've got three main archetypes here. First up is the dissolver, who basically lives for instant gratification. Then you have the revolver, who's always trying to find a shortcut to hack the whole system with logic. And finally, there's the absolver, who just kind of outsources all personal responsibility and hopes for a big cosmic bailout. This is the dissolver's whole philosophy in a nutshell. The strategy is to just burn through all their spiritual capital on things that don't last, because they're banking on the idea that when your body dies, that's it, game over, existence ends. It's a portfolio built 100% on consumption with absolutely zero thought for any kind of long-term assets or consequences. And then you have the revolver's way of thinking. For them, the soul isn't something you grow or develop. No, it's just a data file you need to copy and preserve. They put all their faith in technology and cold, hard logic to achieve a sort of digital immortality, trying to skip what they see as the inefficient, messy process of actual spiritual growth. And rounding out our group, we have the absolver. This one is, well, it's a completely passive investment strategy. Instead of actually working to build virtues or deal with their karmic debts, they just rely on the idea that some savior is going to come along and just wipe the slate clean. Their entire portfolio is built on hope, not on work. So the big takeaway here is that each of these failing strategies comes with a massive risk. The dissolver, their account gets totally drained, and they risk becoming a homeless soul. The revolver's pure logic, it creates a vacuum, and they lose all their individuality in some kind of cold, sterile hive mind. And the absolver, their portfolio is just worthless, which leads to an idle existence completely trapped by their own inaction. All right, so if those are the strategies that fail, what's the one that succeeds? Well, the source material lays out a clear solution. Mastering a curriculum of 7 mystic powers, or rays. You can think of it like building a professional resume for your afterlife career, where each ray is a core competency you need to master. Let's get right into it. The first skill on our afterlife resume is mastering the blue ray, which is all about power. And this is the absolute foundation that everything else is built on. Now, the blue ray isn't about, brute force or anything like that. It's about disciplined willpower. It's described as the engine of your soul, which is a great way to think about it. This is the power used by what the source calls warriors of the law to protect themselves, to direct energy, and to maintain cosmic order. It's the bedrock of self-control. And this is how mastering this power leads directly to your independence. When you develop the blue ray, you build a protective shield against negativity. It gives you the power to enforce self-discipline over your own chaotic thoughts and impulses. And it helps you neutralize attacks from others, not through fighting back, but through focused, controlled energy. Suddenly, you're in the driver's seat, not just a passenger. Okay, so we've got the engine of willpower fired up, but an engine without direction is just chaos, right? So now we need to move on to the next skill on the resume, the yellow ray, which is all about wisdom. So if the blue ray is that powerful engine, the yellow ray is your steering wheel. This is the power of knowledge, of understanding, and of knowing how to apply cosmic laws. It's the competency of planners, strategists, and counselors, the ones who can see the big picture and actually navigate the road ahead. So now we have an engine and a steering wheel, but the vehicle still isn't going anywhere without fuel. And that brings us to what might be the most crucial component in this entire system, the pink ray, the power of love. You really have to get this part. If power is the engine and wisdom is the steering, then love is the fuel. Without it, the whole thing just stalls out. The pink ray is the energy of virtue, compassion, and discernment. The source actually says it's the cohesive force that literally holds the entire universe together. And this right here is exactly why the revolver's strategy completely falls apart. Their pure logic sees compassion as inefficient, like a bug in the system. But this framework argues that wisdom without love just becomes cold and cynical, and ultimately it's powerless because it's missing the very fuel it needs to even operate. Now, to really round out this professional resume, there are 4 other essential powers. You can think of these as specialized career paths. First, there's the white ray. This is the power of purity and creation, the domain of the architects and artists who build new things. Then we have the green ray, which is the power of healing and vision. This is for the cosmic doctors and scientists who repair and understand complex systems. Next up is the purple ray, the power of service and leadership. This is for the guides and mentors who help others find their own way. And finally, the violet ray. This is the advanced power of alchemy and transmutation, the ability to take negative energy and transform it into something new. Mastering these completes your skill set. Okay, so that's a lot of theory, right? But how do you actually do any of this? How does a person go from being a dissolver or an absolver to someone who's actively building this incredible spiritual resume? Well, the source lays out a pretty clear, practical path. Step 1, you have to be brutally honest and just acknowledge the flaws in whatever strategy you're using right now. Then, you choose a major ray to focus on. This is your core competency. You back that up with a minor ray. And here's the most important part. You have to consciously invest your daily energy into actually developing the virtues that go with those powers. So, after all this work, what's the payoff? Why even bother building this resume? Well, the ultimate dividend, it's probably not what you're thinking. First, let's just quickly revisit what's at stake. The consequence of a failed portfolio is pretty stark. Lousy investors, the ones with no spiritual savings, are doomed to wander as, and I'm quoting here, addiction-filled ghosts, totally unable to satisfy their old cravings. That's a pretty powerful motivator to manage your portfolio wisely. But look, the real payoff here isn't about avoiding punishment. It's about graduation. The ultimate goal is not some eternal vacation on a cloud. It's to become a fully independent, sovereign, creative being, a co-creator in the cosmos, not just some passive resident. And we're going to end on this one final thought. This whole framework suggests that our life right here, right now, is a practice run. It's a simulation. And it asks us to really think about how we're using this time. Because someday, the test is going to be real, and the door won't open back into a high school hallway.